This is Entrepreneurs Get Visible, the podcast for people who want more impact, influence, and income. I'm Anna Parker-Naples, and I'll be sharing with you proven methods from leading entrepreneurs that help you get visible as an authority in your field. Because anything's possible when you get visible. If you're asked to get up and give a talk, you want to make sure that it is powerful, memorable, and totally engaging for every single audience member in the room with you. So how do you go about creating a talk that's memorable and packs a powerful punch? So the first thing to remember is that your talk is not about you. And this is something I'll admit that I really struggled with when I decided I wanted to become a motivational speaker. I had a powerful story. I have a memorable story. And if you don't know much about that, then go and listen to my story in episode 00, where I tell you about my journey from disabled and depressed to the red carpets in Hollywood. But my talk is not about me. And unfortunately, I would get lost in the powerful moments of my story. But you have to always remember what's in it for the audience. So my chief takeaway from this episode is that you should start with the end in mind. What are those big takeaways? What is the message you want to relay? And what's going to be the most effective way to do that? So the first thing I will do is start thinking about the core message. What is going to be the real meat of what I want them to learn, experience, and take away? And then the second thing I look at is who is in the audience. What kind of demographics is the audience comprised of, and why are they at that event in the first place? Because that's going to give you all sorts of information about what to weave into the rest of your talk. Now, there are effectively two methods I look at and bring together when I'm crafting a talk. In terms of preparing my talk, I make sure that I am hitting as many of the different representational systems that people have for learning, which are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic as the main umbrellas. So my job is to make sure that how people receive information, I am giving it to them in those ways. And what I do in order to encompass that is I follow loosely the NLP format system. That's the number 4, MAT, M-A-T. And that includes why, what, how, and what if. But there's another one as well, which is the when, which is usually to take action now. So in terms of the why, that is giving that overview of what the topic is, why it's important, why this is relevant for their life, why they should take interest in what I'm about to do. The why is about establishing what's in it for them, what they're going to get out of listening to the rest of your talk. So this is the bit where you want them to sit up and take notice so that they realise that what you're talking about is relevant for their life. The next section then is the what. This is about giving them the facts, giving them the history, giving them the context, the information that they need in order to make this change happen for them. It's the specifics. And then you're going to move on to the how, where in their own mind, they try it on for size, they test it, they think about it. This is how they can work out how they might use this fact and information in their own life and work out how they're going to implement it in their own future. They try it on for size. And then finally is the what if section, which is discovery. It's about predictions, about how this would create a better future for them if they allowed this change, this suggestion, this transformation to happen. And finally, I'd like to drop in a when. So this is normally about taking that action now, deciding to use what I've taught them so that they can integrate it into their own life as soon as they leave that room. Obviously, my work is very often transformational, so it's about deciding that you're going to make those specific changes in your mind right here, right now, rather than waiting until another time down the line. So that's what I look at in terms of the format system, because that allows all these different levels of learning to happen within the same talk. And then there's another technique that I embed, which is the thing that makes my talk much more in flow. And this is about getting people to connect with what you're talking about because they resonate with what you're saying because of the stories that you surround all of your information with. So the way this works is that we learn through story as human beings. We are drawn to story. And the reason is that our subconscious mind likes to take any word or story that it's listening to and work out in that filing cabinet of our brain how this applies to us. So by providing story, our brain is listening not just consciously, but at a subconscious level as well, working out how to file this information. So with that knowledge that story is powerful, and with my background as a master of hypnosis and a master of neuro-linguistic programming, it's not that I want to put my entire audience under trance, but I do want the story to wake them up in some way. I do want that story to filter through those subconscious levels so that it really does have an effect on them. And the way to do that is to have effectively 2 stories that you are going to weave through your talk. And the way it works is that you start your first story that your audience is going to relate to in some way. And you get approximately 3/4 of the way through that story to a pivotal moment in the story. And then you would open your second story. And that second story, again, relates to your subject, relates to the audience, brings them together, is engaging, and you take them about 3/4 of the way through that story, but not to a point of resolution. Again, you take them to a pivotal moment. And that is where the real meat of the message that you want to drive home happens in your talk. This is the message you want them to learn. This is what you want to share with them. This is the biggest takeaway. And that could be a paragraph, a sentence. It could just be the real truth of what you're trying to get them to learn. This is the part that their subconscious is going to be most alert to. Then what you do once you've delivered that message clearly and simply, you give a moment of pause for that to be assimilated into their brain. And then you go back to the second story and you close it up. You finish that story, you bring it to the point of conclusion, which then allows you to go back to that initial story and bring that to a point of conclusion. Now, because we love story, we're going to be carried away as an audience member with what you've been doing. You are in control. You are a master of controlling the language in your talk. So I'm going to recap now about how I go about crafting this talk. I start with the end in mind, and I start with the message I want them to take away. I think clearly about who those audience members are, what their struggles are, what their challenges are, why they're in that room, what is the shared experience in that room, because that's very important too, because you want everybody in that room to feel like that talk is for them, that this is not just something generic that you've done time and time again. The next thing I do is I look at the format system, the why, the what, the how, the what if, and then the when, which is about taking action right now. And finally, I embed stories into what I'm talking about in my talk. So I would have 2 stories, one story to open, another story to open, the meat of my message, the absolute core resonance of what I want this talk to teach somebody. I close the second story and then I close the first. And there you have it. That gives you the shape of a very powerful talk that can transform lives. Because let's face it, if we are speakers, if we do want to be up there on stage, if we do want to be controlling a room, we want to make sure that our message is heard and understood, and not just a conscious but a subconscious level, so that it is taken on board and that it makes as big a difference as it can at both a conscious and subconscious level of understanding. So if you are crafting a talk, perhaps you have to get up at a networking event, or you want to just be getting on those stages and getting more speaker events, slow down with your talk. Make sure that you cover everyone else's learning methods, as well as these key points about using story and using different representational systems. I highly recommend you go and look at the format system as part of the NLP training method before you craft any of your talk. Because once you've got a really effective talk, or you have 3 effective talks up your sleeve, then you are going to find it much easier to approach conferences, events, other people who organise speaker events to happen, because you know what you're talking about and you know the power of your talk for the audience. It is never just a question of getting up there and delivering your personal experience. Thank you for listening to Entrepreneurs Get Visible. To get your free checklist on how to raise your profile and to find out about our community, go to annaparkernaples.co.uk/get visible.